In this video, I want to talk about something that holds back a lot of people from buying Bitcoin, understanding it, and really taking advantage of where this thing is going. And that thing, that reason, is cash flow. Cash flow is something that a lot of people want from an asset. They want to own real estate, they want to own stocks, and they want to get either rental income or they want to get a dividend. But I don't think most people realize that cash flow is just you liquidating the time value of your asset. So the time value of money, this is from Investopedia, this is a definition. It surmises. So what surmise? I actually had to Google this. I didn't know what surmises meant. I didn't just want to assume. So it says it's something that's assumed to be true without the evidence to confirm it. So we can see here, suppose that something is true without having the evidence to confirm it, a supposition that something may be true even though there's no evidence to confirm it. So the time value of money surmises that money is worth more now than at a future date based on its earning potential. So what you're assuming here is that having money today is better than having money in the future. And it makes sense. It makes a lot of sense because you can do things today that you can't do maybe in the future. Maybe if, let's say you're 70 years old and you don't know if you'll be alive in 5, 10 years. What you want is you want the money right now because having the money now gives you options to do things that maybe you can't do in the future. There's no promise that the future will even exist. So we can see here, because money can grow when invested, any delay is a lost opportunity for growth. The time value of money is a core financial principle known as the present discounted value. And the reason why I was talking about the time value of money is time value of money is a way to assign value to delayed gratification, to delayed consumption. With real estate, you have to ask your tenants to pay you cash flow in order for you to take advantage of the time value of money. You're letting them borrow your property so you can't do anything with it, and you're giving them the option to take that property and live in it, to use the land that you have, the land that you own. You're giving them the ability to borrow it from you. And that's where the time value of money comes in. So what you're doing is you're giving them that property. They're liquidating the time value of your asset. So what you're doing is you're giving that property to them for a month or a year or however long, and then you're getting it back in a month or a year or however long. And in that time, it's maybe depreciated. You don't have the option to use it for that month, and that's the time value of money. They're giving you cash flow because you can't use it for that month. And people buy real estate specifically for the time value of money, specifically because they know that they can buy this asset and they can rent it out to someone. They can liquidate the time value of that asset, and then they can get that back in cash. So they can get it in US dollars, for example. Bitcoin completely destroys this assumption of having to earn cash flow because the time value of money gets destroyed otherwise. So let's say, for example, if you were to just hold on to a real estate property, if you don't get cash flow, then the time value of money from that property is gone to zero. It's gone to zero. It's worthless. You can't do anything with it. So if you just have a property sitting there, let's say you have a house sitting there, nobody's living in it, nobody can use it, nobody can extract value from it by living in it, by using it as shelter. The time value of money of that real estate is just going to zero because it's essentially not being used. The time that it's existing is not being used. But at the same time, the value will continue to depreciate. You'll have to continue to maintain the value, the property. You'll have to continue making payments. You'll have to pay property taxes. You'll have to pay insurance. You still have to do all of that. But the issue is that you're not getting anything out of the property. So real estate investors are forced to rent out their property. On the other hand, with Bitcoin, you don't need to do this. With Bitcoin, the appreciation, the time value of money is built into Bitcoin as the asset. Because Bitcoin has a finite supply, the value of Bitcoin continues to rise. The purchasing power of Bitcoin continues to rise. So the time value of money is built into Bitcoin. You don't need to sell. You don't need to lend your property. You don't need to lend your Bitcoin to someone in order to capture that time value of money. Same thing with stocks. So with stocks, you can hold on to your stock. With certain companies, the value appreciates enough to make up for that time value of money. But on other stocks, let's say the returns are low, most companies turn into dividend stocks. They pay you for holding on to their stock. They pay you for the time that you're dedicating, the cash that you're dedicating for a certain amount of time to that company. So if you continue to hold the stock, they'll give you a dividend. And again, part of the reason for this is that the company wants you to continue holding the stock. If you don't hold the stock, if you don't continue to hold on to this asset, this share of the company, then the value of the company decreases. If a lot of people have an incentive to sell the stock, then why would the stock price go up? There would be more supply than demand. If people are more willing to sell the stock than they are to buy it, of course, the price is going to decrease. Executives are hurt. So, one of the reasons why companies have to offer you a dividend, one of the reasons why they're forced to offer you a dividend is because they don't have the growth side of things. So, let's say, for example, we have Amazon. Amazon has been growing significantly. They don't offer a dividend because Amazon is a technology company and they keep innovating. They keep adding newer and newer services to their inventory of services that they already have, all the services that they already offer. They keep adding newer and newer services to it. So with Amazon, they're not paying you a dividend because they don't care if you hold their stock or not. This company is so valuable and it's assumed to continue to become more and more valuable, so they don't need to give you a dividend. They know for a fact that holding the stock and the capital appreciation for holding the stock is enough to get you to continue holding. Another example here, so I'm going to compare this to Amazon, just the numbers here. We can see here, Enbridge has just moved sideways since April of 2015. It's actually gone down. So since April of 2015, the stock price has decreased by 13%. But people are willing to hold this stock because of the dividend yield. So Enbridge has to pay this dividend yield. Otherwise, nobody's willing to hold the stock. Why would you want to hold a stock where you're going to be losing money? Enbridge is not a company that's going to keep innovating. They don't need to keep innovating because they have essentially a monopoly. They have, you can see here, they're an energy company located in Canada, Alberta, or Calgary, Alberta, Canada. Enbridge owns and operates pipelines throughout Canada and the United States, transporting crude oil, natural gas, and natural gas liquids. Also generates renewable energy. So this company has this business that's already built, and it's very difficult to change this business. So Enbridge needs investors to keep holding onto the stock. So they have this dividend as an incentive to keep holding. Why would anyone hold Enbridge stock if they didn't give out a dividend when they know for a fact that over time they're going to lose value? Why would you choose to hold on to Enbridge if you know that Enbridge isn't innovating? They're not building new products. I don't keep in mind, I haven't done a deep dive on Enbridge. This is just an example. The point here is that Enbridge needs to give you this dividend in order for you to keep holding the stock. And Enbridge is more of a established company. They're more of a mature company. So their shareholders may be people who want to have consistent cash flows and consistent growth. Why would you want to hold this stock? It wouldn't. I personally don't think it would make any sense if you're in your 20s and you want growth. You want to accumulate all of the cash flows that you have. Instead of getting them in cash, you want to just accumulate. You want them to accrue in the business. So let's look at Amazon now. So we can see here, Amazon stock, since in the same period, we can see here, I think it was April 2015. We can see here from April 2015 all the way till today, it's up 953%. It's gone up almost more than 10x. It's increased more than 10x. And Amazon has no dividend. Because Amazon is known as a company that's going to probably keep innovating. They're going to keep adding new services, new value. They're going to keep offering new value to their clients. And that's the point. Amazon's investors know that Amazon is a company that can keep innovating. They can keep producing new value. And they have been doing that. They have a track record of doing that. So with Enbridge, the investors want Enbridge to liquidate the cash, the time value of money. They want them to liquidate and give it to their investors because the investors, maybe they know that Enbridge will not innovate. On the other hand, investors with Amazon want Amazon to keep the cash. They want Amazon to keep the time value of money. They think that taking the time value of money for themselves isn't worth it because they think that Amazon can probably do much better with the cash than themselves than them owning the cash and spending it on whatever if they would need to invest in something else. So Amazon's investors are okay with Amazon just holding on to the cash. This is the difference between real estate and Bitcoin. With real estate, you have to liquidate. You're forced to liquidate the time value of money. You can't hold on to the time value of money because it's not possible. The property will continue to deteriorate no matter what. So you're forced to rent that property out. You're forced to give that property to someone else just to maintain its value. On the other hand, with Bitcoin, you don't need to do that. A lot of people say they don't want Bitcoin because it doesn't have any cash flows. And to me, it doesn't make any sense because Bitcoin has been rising by 50, 60% per year. So why would you want to hold something that rises at, let's say, 3 to 5% per year, and then you get 5% in cash flow? So in total, let's say the total return with leverage is 15, 20%. But with Bitcoin, you're getting 50 to 60% by doing nothing. Why wouldn't you want to hold the asset where there's no maintenance, there's no cost to hold on to it, there's no tenants to deal with, there's no realtors, there's no lawyers, none of that. None of that applies to Bitcoin, but all of that applies to real estate. So with real estate, there's no way to hold it unless you're getting a cash flow. There's no reason to hold it unless you're getting a cash flow. Same thing with a company like Enbridge. So if Enbridge didn't give you a dividend, it's very likely that you wouldn't want to hold their stock. On the other hand, Bitcoin doesn't need to give you a dividend because Bitcoin's going to grow regardless. The adoption hasn't even hit close to where it should be. Most people who can benefit from Bitcoin haven't benefited. Same thing with Amazon. So Amazon's sales are growing. Their users, the number of users that are using the app are growing. People are willing to sell with Amazon. Amazon's network just keeps growing, and because of this, Amazon's enterprise value keeps growing. Same thing with Bitcoin. Right now, keep in mind that less than 1% of the people who could benefit from Bitcoin actually own some. So what's going to happen when the rest of the 99% of people who could benefit from Bitcoin want to adopt it? The price has to go up. So to hold Bitcoin, you don't need to be incentivized with cash flows. To hold real estate, you do need to be incentivized with cash flows because with real estate, the time value of money is destroyed if you don't get cash flows. If you just hold on to a property, you're going to have to pay for the maintenance, for the repairs, all that stuff. With Bitcoin, there's no cost. There's no cost to maintain it. So the time value of money just accrues to Bitcoin. It keeps increasing and increasing, compounding in value over time. So we can see here, a sum of money once invested can grow over time. Money deposited into a high yield savings account can earn interest. Over the ensuing months and years, that interest will be added to the principal, earning more and more interest. That's what's known as the power of compound interest. So back to the Bitcoin example here. If you're liquidating the time value of money from your real estate, you're not putting it back into the property or using it to pay for your expenses, then the real value of that property has decreased because you're extracting value from it. You're taking value out of it. On the other hand, with Bitcoin, you don't need to do that. You don't need to take the time value of money out of Bitcoin. You can, of course, sell some of your Bitcoin if you want to, if you need cash flows. That's the solution here. If you don't want to buy Bitcoin because you don't have cash flows, sell some of your Bitcoin. That's the way for you to generate your own cash flow, to have the freedom to create cash flow. If you want to, you can create cash flow, but you don't have to if you don't want to. On the other hand, with real estate, you're forced to. So back to what I was saying here, with Bitcoin, the time value of money accrues to your asset. So I think Bitcoin's growth that we're going to see over the next few years, the next decade, is going to blow people's minds because of compounding, because of the fact that all of the value that you have, all of the value that accrues to the network, the number of people who join the network, it all just accrues to your Bitcoin. You don't have to give it away. You're not forced to give it away to someone so that they can take possession of your Bitcoin and then they can pay you for it. You don't need to do that. Time value of money is built into Bitcoin. On the other hand, with real estate, you have to find creative ways to generate the time value of money. You have to rent it to someone. You have to borrow against your property. With Bitcoin, you don't need to do all of that. With Bitcoin, you have options. Options are what differentiate Bitcoin from every other asset. The fact that you can choose whether or not you want to take on cash flows is the key here. Same thing with Amazon. You can sell some of your Amazon shares and you can create a cash flow, even though the company isn't explicitly giving you a dividend. Let's say you have 1,000 shares of Amazon and your expenses are a few $100s or a few $1,000s a month. You can sell, let's say, 10, 15 shares of Amazon every single month, And over time, you can keep selling them and you can keep generating your own cash flow, but you have the choice there. The company isn't forced to give you a dividend no matter what. On the other hand, with a company like Enbridge, no matter what happens, you're going to get that dividend. Even if the company doesn't make any money, even if the company doesn't innovate, you're going to get a dividend. They're forced to pay you a dividend. They're forced to pay you a certain amount of money, no matter what. And it's very likely that a lot of investors who own Enbridge will probably sell their stock if Enbridge suddenly stops giving out a dividend. So the stock, because of this, will underperform even more if Enbridge says we're not going to give out a dividend anymore. So the difference here is that with real estate, with certain stocks, you're forced to receive a cash flow because otherwise your investment won't be profitable. This is exactly what it is with real estate. Real estate wouldn't be profitable if you couldn't rent it out. On the other hand, with Bitcoin, you have the choice. You can lend it to people, you can sell some, you can just hold on to it. But regardless of what happens, the value that you have in Bitcoin, the value of the Bitcoin network accrues to your holdings. No matter what happens, if you hold on to your Bitcoin, the value that's created by the Bitcoin network will accrue to your coins. When people want Bitcoin, it'll accrue to the value of your specific holdings. Works very similarly with real estate. As people want real estate, the value of it goes up. But again, with real estate, there's no way to buy a property. There's no way for property values to go up unless the monetary base, the form of money that we have, could be created out of thin air. But what happens if the world goes to a Bitcoin standard? If the world goes to a Bitcoin standard, real estate values are going to decrease significantly. I always come back to this chart. Check out this website, Priced in Bitcoin 21. This is the United States median new house. In 2011, a house cost 64,000 Bitcoin. Today, it costs 6.35 Bitcoin. And the reason for this is, of course, because most people don't have Bitcoin at all. They don't own Bitcoin. Over time, it becomes more difficult to produce Bitcoin. On the other hand, with real estate, people already own houses. People who want to own houses very likely own them. People who have the ability to own houses already own them because banks can give them the money to buy those houses. On the other hand, in terms of Bitcoin, the value of houses has decreased because over time it becomes easier and easier to build more houses, while over time it becomes more and more difficult to produce more Bitcoin. When you value houses in fiat currencies, when you value houses in US dollars, of course, the value is going to keep going up. It's going to go up forever because over time, it becomes easier and easier to create more fiat currencies. So as a society, we've gone from using metal coins or paper as money to now using digital bytes. So those digital bytes can be created out of thin air. There's no resources that are required to create those bytes. They're literally just numbers on a spreadsheet. That's it. So over time, this green line, this is the green line is the value in terms of fiat currencies. This will continue to go up. So if you don't change your lens, if you don't change from thinking about the world on a US dollar standard to a Bitcoin standard, the cost of living that you have will continue to rise. And that's the goal. The goal is to increase your cost of living so you keep working for as long as possible, so you keep generating as much in taxes as possible. On the other hand, if you switch over to a Bitcoin standard, you're going to see your cost of living decrease. Just like with the price of a house, you're going to see the cost of living for food. You're going to see your cost of transportation, cost of energy, cost of everything, really, clothing. Everything that you spend your money on is going to decrease in price in terms of Bitcoin because Bitcoin is more difficult to create, because Bitcoin has the time value of money accruing to the Bitcoin. It's all being accumulated with the people who own Bitcoin because there's no maintenance, no repairs, no cost of owning it. You don't have to deal with lawyers, realtors, all that stuff. All that stuff has a factor into this. So over time, we're going to see this keep decreasing. We're going to see the price of a house keep decreasing regardless of cash flows. Wall Street doesn't care about cash flows. Wall Street cares about total returns. Total returns are the only thing that matters here. It doesn't matter if your property is generating 2, 3, 5, 10, 15% cash flows. If it's underperforming against Bitcoin, that means you're losing. You're losing money if your property is underperforming against Bitcoin. It means that your property is losing value. You're losing the time value of money. You're losing the potential returns that you could have. So it doesn't really make any sense in this world to give up Bitcoin just because you want cash flows from real estate. It doesn't make any sense at all. If you want to learn more about Bitcoin, if you want to learn more about real estate versus Bitcoin, watch the video on your screen.